today's video, I'm going to be showing you a sculpted honeycomb design. And to get those little honeycombs sculpted, I had to do a little technique I have never seen anybody do, I have never done myself. I had to kind of figure out a way to get the honeycombs perfect because that is my style. Get them exactly how they need to be. So if you have ever wanted to sculpt and even add designs and templates to a nail form, keep watching. I hope you like it and I'll see you all next time. Bye.
I started by printing off this little honeycomb pattern I just did a Google search for it. And then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut it out. And I sized it into my, my notes pages app so that I knew it was about the same size as my nail form. So just measure your nail form and make sure it's going to be at least big enough. Take off the little tab that your nail form has for where the finger goes and place that onto your piece of paper. Kind of line it up to see where you want your honeycomb to start, right at the free edge, and then place that little plastic tab, the little sticker tab, on top of your honeycomb pattern so that it lines up and it looks nice and straight on the honeycomb so it's even. Then take a manicure scissors or a bigger scissors and you're going to cut out right along the edge of where that little sticky tab is. So you're using that sticky tab as your template to cut out the hole for the finger. Then you can just discard that. You don't need that anymore. You can close up the stickiness so it doesn't get stuck to everything. Now go back to your nail form, line it up. It should fit absolutely perfectly because you're taking what you just used. And then I'm going to grab some packaging tape. I wouldn't use like Scotch tape or any kind of other tape, but like that nice, thin, very clear packaging tape. You can use cheap packaging tape even. You might want to take a little piece of the packaging tape to sort of tack it down, or possibly a piece or two of double-sided tape on the underside of your honeycomb, but as long as it's stuck, sort of, you're good enough. Then lay your packaging tape right over the top, cover up the hole where the sticky tab from where the finger goes and the nail form backing is, just layer tape right on top of it. Do that so that it completely covers. You want to make sure that there is packaging tape going across the entire nail form backing, and you want to overlap it. You don't want it to just barely line up. You need to make sure that you are protecting the paper from your acrylic or gel so that as you're sculpting, you don't end up with your nail form stuck to the nail, stuck to the enhancement. Once it's off of there, you can go ahead and you can cut in that opening again. So cut the nail form at the back tab and then cut around so you're cutting away that tape that is now in place. So after you have that done, you basically have yourself a customized patterned nail form. It is a little cumbersome to fit onto the nail, more so than if it were just the nail form on its own, but it does work. I am using my practice finger for this, which I personally find to be a little more cumbersome to put a nail form on than an actual human. So it just adds a little bit of insult to injury there. And I'm just going to make sure that I have that all trimmed away. If you're using a big scissors like I am and it doesn't seem to work, switch to a smaller scissors and you should be able to cut into those areas easier. Now go ahead and close the edge of your form. You've got some more tape to work with, so it's closing a little bit in more spaces than otherwise, and open up the tabs of your nail form. If you want to get rid of some of the extra tape, you could. I actually kind of liked having more of the nail form closed as far as that goes. In my excitement to customize this nail form, I forgot to put tape around my finger. So it's not going to stick to my finger very well at first. As you can see, it's just not sticking. I will fix that. Once you have your nail form placed on the nail properly, close all of the bottom tabs. The paper is possibly going to wrinkle a little bit differently. It may take a couple practice tries to get it to fit on there and look just smooth and even and structured. However, it does work. When you're using your printer paper, use cheap printer paper. You don't want to use super heavy, thick, high quality, luxurious linen type printer paper. Just like the basic cheapo stuff is going to actually work the best. I am going to cut open the side walls a little bit on my nail form backing and sort of pull those out to help get that fit just a little bit tighter. And like I said, this is a little more cumbersome than if it were a regular nail form. So it does take a little bit of practice. And if you're new to nail forms, I probably wouldn't jump right in with doing one of these. But if you have at least a minimal amount of experience, you should be fine. The first thing I'm going to do, as I always would with a nail form, is I'm going to extend my nail bed area down onto the nail form with some clear acrylic and then just blend it with clear acrylic across the natural nail. If this is a natural nail, you definitely want to make sure that you have that layer of clear acrylic because that's going to act as your base coat because it will adhere to the nail plate a little bit better than your color acrylics will. After I've got that clear base, I'm going to encapsulate, or no, I'm going to cover the top portion of this nail, the whole nail bed area, with a pale yellow color I absolutely love. It's so pretty. It's got a little bit of shimmer in it. And that's the color that I'm going to use throughout my entire honeycomb sculpting process. Now, I've used the word tedious in videos many, many times. I've said this is tedious or that is tedious. It's a word that just seems to describe some of these repeating nail designs very well, and none of them fit it quite as well as this one does. The great thing with sculpting on top of something like this template is that you know exactly where you're going. So there's no question necessarily, you know you have to just cover up the lines. What does seem to take a little bit of effort is that because it's slippery and you're making straight lines over curved shapes, you have to really kind of watch your acrylic so that it doesn't shift. So as you're sculpting, you'll think you have a line in place, and then you'll look at it a second later and it kind of spread out, or maybe it kind of developed a curve. So you have to keep going back and checking until your acrylic is nice and firm. As you are sculpting these various parts of your honeycomb design, you may want to take stock of how far down the side walls you're taking each honeycomb. If your honeycomb pattern was lined up very straight so that there's a nice, symmetrical pattern on the left and the right side, you should be able to just count and take your honeycomb where it's like 3 down and then 3 back up. You should be able to plan it out that way, which is basically what I did. I'm counting these as like 3 steps going down and then 3 steps going back up towards the middle. And it makes it so that it's symmetrical and it's even, and it is a counted process, so you don't have to question whether or not that part of it's accurate. Once you are finally done with all of your little honeycomb sections, you've got them all finished, leave this to cure for way longer than what feels like it's necessary on there. You don't want there to be any flexibility remaining before you try to remove this nail form. When you're at that point, peel away whatever kind of tape you need to peel away or cut away, and then slowly pinch it. The honeycomb is delicate. You don't want to rush the process. Just slowly pinch it and then pull it down and through, pinching as you go so that you don't flex or move any of that beautiful honeycomb. I'm now going to make a honey type substance. So I've got some gold glitter acrygel. I'm going to add in some honey colored gel polish. And then I thought that was too yellow. It didn't have the honey look that I was hoping for after I had that fully mixed in. So then I'm going to take a bronze color, kind of a jelly gel, and I'm going to mix that in. And then I got just the kind of warm honey color that I was really hoping for with those little gold flecks. I loved it. And I'm going to spread that color kind of randomly over the top of my honeycomb, pressing it in and around. I don't want to cover all of the honeycomb sections, and I don't want to fully fill them in necessarily. I just want to add some honey kind of dripping over some of my honeycomb pattern. When I'm working with a product like this acrygel and I'm filling in and I'm trying to float and bring product and bridge it from one section to the other, it is imperative that you cure frequently once you are happy with a certain section. And if you get to where one section you just can't quite fill it in, there's a gap no matter what you do, cure it and then fill in the gap, and it should be able to bridge over just fine. And I'm not trying to fill in all of my honeycomb. I'm just doing certain sections, being selective about it, making sure that it does have a level of symmetry from side to side. So I'm not going to just heavily cover the left side of the nail with honey and leave the right side blank, or vice versa. Not just going to apply all the honey right at the tip of the nail. I want it to be balanced, not necessarily symmetrical anymore, but symmetrically balanced so that it doesn't look heavy or weighted on one side or the other. Going over doing the same process right on the end there. I have found, so this acrygel that I'm using is not Gelish Polygel brand. It is just a off brand I was sent a long time ago, and it is very sticky comparatively, and so my brush really wanted to stick to it, which is not super convenient. However, you kind of work through these things, but that gold glitter was just the perfect color for this. I'm trying to work through it. So as you can see, if I'm having some technical difficulties here, I'm gonna blame it on the gel. As I'm applying this over the top of that area in the nail bed, this is where I really had the most trouble. As you can see, I switched brushes trying to see if that would help, but sticky gel is sticky gel, and if it doesn't want to adhere, it just is going to be a butt. But I'm going to work this over, trying to press this out very, very kind of thin and smooth so that it doesn't get to be where it looks too dark in any area. I'm not necessarily going for a smooth, even cover either, but just so it looks kind of, I don't know, it looks like honey. You see what I'm going with here? I've got a little bit more that I'm going to apply. Every time I'm happy with a section though, just because of how this gel was behaving, I did cure it. And then I'm going to take and cleanse the surface of everything to get rid of any inhibition layer with some isopropyl alcohol. And now taking brown gel paint and brown, make sure it's brown, I'm going to take and add some extra honey dripping layers. So this is going to be spaces where the honey has a metallic gold, but instead of normally when you use metallic colors and you want them to be the really rich, deep color, you apply black and then burnish them into the black. The reason to use brown here is I find that when you burnish gold over black, it sometimes takes on a green hue. And to combat that, I'm going to apply it over brown, which will help give it that warm undertone. Once the gel paint is cured, go ahead and burnish your gold chrome powder into that. It will not stick to the cleansed acrygel background or the acrylic. It should just stick to your gel paint. Once that is done, then you can go ahead and brush off the extra and apply some gel sealer over the whole thing, which will make it super shiny and super luscious and rich looking. After that is done, if you want to leave this nail like this, you absolutely can. It is so cool. You can go ahead and just rock it. Obviously, be very careful because it is super duper delicate. Or because I have to include my little extra elements to everything, I'm going to be sculpting a 3D bumblebee with yellow acrylic. This is a different shade of yellow than the one that I used initially for the honeycomb. I'm going to be sculpting the start of my bee. I'm going to sculpt the head and the abdomen first, leaving a space in the middle for the thorax. That'll give the thorax just kind of an upward position across the other two. Pat them out into the right shape. Make sure that your acrylic is in that beautiful Play-Doh-y stage when you start to adjust shapes that way. Kind of leave it until it just starts to turn matte, kind of has a satin sheen. That should be about the right moment. Then after I have those two started, I'm going to add the thorax in the middle. And then I'm going to be adding my eyes. There are a few parts of this bee that I am leaving out for strength purposes. And I know that this nail isn't strong and practical to actually wear, but even within that, there are certain things I'm just going to leave out. I'm not doing the mandibles and I'm not doing the antenna, nor am I doing any legs. Obviously, if you want to add all of those extra pieces, you certainly can. All the power to you. I just felt that it would be a little too thin and a little too delicate to try to get those in. So I decided to leave those out. Once I have the first layer of acrylic done on my bee, I'm going to go through and add a second layer to basically everything just to thicken it up and bulk it out. And then I'm going to be sculpting my wings. So each side, I'm going to first sculpt the forewing, which is going to be the bigger of the two parts. And then this is with clear acrylic just to make sure that they look nice and clear and sheer and shiny. If you want to use white as more of a cutesy look, you could. After I have the first part of that wing done, then I'm going to be adding the hind wing next to each one. If you go back and forth and do them side to side, I am fairly good at eyeballing it to make sure that the size stays accurate. If you're not, you can go ahead and either print off a template like we did for the honeycomb off the internet or draw one if that works better for you. Once you have those wings all sculpted and cured, then you can glue them onto your bee's body. So you're going to glue them to the middle of the thorax using a little bit of nail glue and then your finger to help prop them up, I find is one of the best routes. Finger and thumb, or you can set the bee on the table and then use a tweezers on either side of it as little props to put the wings on. Either option works. Once they are glued on and the glue has started to kind of hold itself in position, then you're going to take more of your yellow acrylic and you're going to add even more bulk to your bumblebee. The more layers you add is going to be dependent on how thick each layer starts with. So if after the first layer of acrylic it seemed really thick and like it wouldn't be fragile, you wouldn't have had to have the second one and this third one. You could have just skipped over. Mine, after that first layer, I was really focused on just getting the shape down. So they were very thin and I would have been afraid to peel it off of the nail form backing and have a split between one of the sections of the bee, like between the head and thorax or any of those spots I thought it could possibly break. So that's why I added the second one. After that's done and cured, you can click it and it makes that delightful little clicky sound with your nail. Flip it over and add a little more acrylic to your bee's belly. Doesn't have to be anything fancy on that side, just for strength and a little bit of roundness so it doesn't look so flat. Add a tad more acrylic to the eyes of your bee to give them a bit more of a bulbous, rounded shape. And then after you've got those two eyes done, then you can go through and paint the eyes with black gel paint so that they have the right texture to pick up some duochrome powder. Burnish the duochrome powder into that after it's cured. Then I'm going to apply some chrome base over the top of my wings. A no wipe gel top coat should also work. And then using my duochrome, I'm going to burnish the wings with that color as well. Make them very iridescent and just so beautiful. Apply some gel top coat over the two chromed areas. And then to attach your bee to the nail, you can either glue it right down to the surface of the nail, or if you want, I'm going to take some clear acrylic and I'm going to build that up to create a platform so that the bee looks like he's just floating right over the surface of the honeycomb. After I have that little platform created, I'm going to go underneath the nail and make sure that it is attached to the underside of the nail, kind of creating like a little prongs on the underside of the honeycomb to hold it in place very well. Just add a little more structure. Attach your bee to the top of the platform with a smidgen of nail glue. And then after it is cured just enough, go ahead and apply more clear acrylic, connecting the bee to the platform in a little bit of just filling in all of the gaps. Now with acrylic paint, you can go through and add the rest of the details to your bee, the black details and striping across the body, the little details on the wings, any of the last things that you want to do. There are so many different species of bee and wasp and whatever it is that you want to do, yellow jacket, that you can go through and you can find some very interesting patterns on different bees. Some of them have more white on their body if you wanted to incorporate more color. I kind of like the monochrome of just the yellows and golds and black. However, you can certainly have fun with it. After you have those little details done on your bee, the last thing you're going to need to do is finish the bee with top coat. Not top coat on the body, another layer of gel sealer over the wings, and he's all done. Isn't this so cool? I absolutely love how the technique of using the little printed template off the internet worked over the top of my nail form, and you can bet I'll be doing similar things again. I hope you like it, and I will see you all next time. Bye!